Hi everybody, welcome to week 6. This week I've just spent some time giving you each some individual feedback on your pitch storyboards. I want to start by framing the intent of that feedback. I tried to look at it in the spirit of helping you make your work better. I tried to give you suggestions for how I would consider thinking about it if it were me. It's important for you to know that I don't have all the context about your working environment, your user need, how you're thinking about the rationale that you developed. So I want you to understand right off the top that I tried to give you the best feedback that I could with the information I'd received, but I don't want you to have it come across as if it's a dictate, or that I expect you to just try to move forward with what I suggested. I more wanted to push your thinking, consider my experience as a design-based leader, as well as how I thought through our course deliverables and provide feedback in that spirit. To that end, I recognize that you might want more clarification about what I mean. I'm happy to either reply to emails or replies within the D2L thread, or sometimes it might help more to talk through something that you're thinking about as opposed to the time that it takes to articulate things in text. And if that's the case, just send me a note. I'm happy to arrange to meet you via Adobe Connect or whatever can work to have a chat if that seems like a good fit. Overall, I'm really excited about how you've taken this work up in your context. I feel really inspired about the work going on. As a common sort of FAQ or a theme that's not inherent in everybody's work, but it certainly emerged that I want to clarify, is this concept of call to action. Really what we're doing in the call to action in our pitch is looking ahead to the next part of our work in this learning task 2. Part B, the design deep dive. If you haven't had a chance to dig into the video that talks about what the deep dive's about and the criteria for the deep dive, that'll help you think about what I'm asking in the call to action. Essentially, there's a distinction that I'm trying to work through between being a designer and being a design-based leader. For me, being a designer means designing something for other people, emergent from their needs. Being a design-based leader means engaging others in a process of design. You could be thought of it as, teaching a man to fish as opposed to giving them a fish. We really want to think about how this design work can be participatory. That's going to look different in different situations with different stakeholders. It doesn't necessarily mean that everybody needs to use a full design process with in the way that we have with your stakeholders, but I do want you to think about how this is something different than you implementing or doing something to others, and more you engaging others and empowering others. You're creating distributed leadership. So in our design deep dive, it's a chance to think about how are you moving this from a prototype, which should be something quick that you've used and tried out in your context, to a process that you can get other stakeholders to start engaging in, so that they can take ownership and move forward in your context towards your I wish. So a lot of people receive sort of similar feedback around that. I wanted to speak to it. And that also might take some of the pressure off. I see some of the people's prototypes are more like implementing a strategy than they are like prototypes. A prototype needs to be quick. It's about a bias for action. It's about trying things out to learn more about them, and then get iterating. And then that's where we move towards, over time, implementation, just through an ongoing process of iteration, as opposed to a whole bunch of front-end planning and a big strategic rollout. That's a different type of thinking than design thinking. So think about whether or not the thing you're planning in your prototype is the right scope for a prototype. And then some of how you've been thinking about your pitch might actually be the whole LT2. because if you look forward to LT2 Part C, the story of your design work, that's where you're going to start to bring in stakeholder voice and consider what other people have created in your context and tell the bigger arc. This first part of the pitch is to frame the rationale, to explain how, get your users to see that you've tried something and to get them to think about to be involved in what it is you're asking them to do. So some of you, I think, have made the pitch bigger than it needs to be at this phase. And again, if that scope is unclear, let me know. You're also going to, hopefully in the next coming days, receive and provide feedback to a peer. And taking a look at how other people have thought through this can also help. I encourage you. It was great for me to look across all 10. That might be with beyond the scope of what you need to do, but do look at a few others to see how they can give you ideas for what you're taking up. Moving forward to more specifically about this week, the work this week is about incorporating the feedback that you received. Critique is only useful if it is followed by revision. Again, that doesn't mean that you make all the changes people suggest, but you consider how this whole week of reading other people's and receiving feedback can help you think about how to plan again for creating your pitch. And then most of the time this week is on producing your pitch. Initially, in the week 6 D2L form, you can see there's a place for you to do a reflective post on design-based leadership. Thinking about what's most important this week, I'd like you to not try to do a formal written post for week 6. I'm going to clearly mark on there that it's not intended for you each to feel like you should respond, and rather reframe that as a chance for you to consider those reflection prompts on your own. It is important to do it because it's scaffolding for the third learning task, where you're going to take a shot at articulating your design-based leadership vision. This week's reflection is meant to help you think about, okay, based on what we've been doing up until now, how am I thinking about design-based leadership and my own leadership vision? So maybe just take some jot notes in your own way, or think about that in your own way. But I know that it's a way more time-consuming process to try to articulate that as a discussion forum post. So I'm going to take that off your plate for this week and get you to focus on creating that pitch. Looking ahead, we have reading week following this coming week. So there's no readings or assignments from our class, other than knowing that this pitch that you're working on this week is due on the 2nd of March. And also we're looking ahead to our Adobe Connect session. In week 7, you're going to start to plan how is that deep dive going to look, and then we're going to have a synchronous session on Adobe Connect on March 7th, where I'm going to largely spend the time having you in breakout rooms receiving feedback from your peers about how you're thinking about that pitch. So that's multi-steps ahead, but I think it's relevant given that you're thinking about the call to action, thinking about where this is headed, and heading into reading week, where some of you may be choosing to use that as a chance to work ahead. I'm not sure about all the other things you're juggling in your life. I know in some schools report card process starts in March. In a high school context, you're just starting the semester, so you might have more space now. Post-secondary, we just had a really busy January. So knowing that you have a variety of different time frames, I wanted to just speak a little bit ahead to that so that you might start working on that or not. And I can be of assistance, and I'm available via email if you are doing some of that work of thinking ahead and need additional clarification. Okay, this is probably a lengthy video if you're still watching now. But again, I'm looking forward to seeing where this goes. Excited about the work. Hope you're seeing it as relevant, and reach out to me so that I know what you need if I'm not on the mark with what I'm providing for support. Thanks.